Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to show you the proper way to mount a motorized bicycle gas tank. I'm going to show you how to do it without cracking the studs so it doesn't leak. Like we're going to do today, we're going to need to make some extra wide mounting brackets. For it, the tube on the top of the bike is extra wide, so I'm going to show you how we can make some that are a little bit deeper that'll allow the gas tank to sit properly on the frame. Now, one problem that a lot of people have is they get the hardware too tight and they wind up cracking the welds on the studs that go through the bottom of the tank. I'm going to show you how to do that so we don't go cracking the studs. One problem quite often they have, the powder coating is too thick on the studs and the hardware will not go down the studs easily. I use a 5mm 0.8 pitch die. I chase the threads as well. Some of them have a 6mm thread on it too. Chase the threads, clean them off. You don't need to go with the expense of a die if the threads are clean anyway. So test your hardware, see if it works. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, go ahead and clean it up with the die. Because if you're going to be cranking the nuts really hard on the stud, you'll wind up breaking the weld there and you'll have a gas leak. One problem we have with some of the vendors, the studs get bent. You want to be very careful if you straighten up the bends. Okay, so let's go with what we're going to do here. You're going to take the filter of the petcock, throw it away. We're going to go with the inline filter only. We've got our hardware. Like I said, we're going to fabricate some new mounting brackets here. If your kit comes with the nylock fasteners, you definitely want to try one on the threads and see if it goes down all the way. The nylock will make it harder to turn, and if it's too hard to turn, you're going to wind up damaging the welds on the studs. So you've been warned. You don't want to crank down too hard on those and you'll wind up breaking them, okay? Okay, so here's the tools that we're going to use, the materials we're going to use. Like I said, I'm going to fabricate some new mounting brackets. I've got two 5-inch pieces of 1-inch galvanized duct strap that I'm going to use. I've got my fancy-fied Whitney punch here. If you're just going to do that this one time, hey, you don't need a punch. Go ahead and drill it. But the punch is a lot quicker on the galvanized to pop the holes in. Some nylon thread tape, that's going to help keep the petcock from leaking gas. 8-inch crescent wrench, 8mm combination wrench. Got our handy 10 snips here, and also we're going to use a pair of linesman pliers to bend the straps here. So what I want to do is I want to bend the strap, but basically make it where it goes about 1/3 of an inch lower than the original one. I need to line up the holes, but just drop it down 1/3 of an inch lower here. So I'm going to go in about 3/4 of an inch, bend it a little bit here. All right, now we can go ahead and pop the hole into the strap using the punch. Like I said, if you don't have the punch, get you a drill bit, drill you a hole large enough for the 5mm stud to go through. Now then, the galvanized strap that I use is soft enough I can bend it by hand. It'll be plenty strong for the application here. Just eyeball it, and then once you get it bent to shape, make sure that you've adding a little bit extra room. So this can be properly mounted on a bike with an extra large top tube. There we go. Line it up, and as you can see, I'm about 1/3 of an inch to 1/2 an inch bigger there. Go ahead and round off the ends of the mounting bracket here so you don't have any sharp edges. Go ahead and make your second bracket the same. Since we need both the front and the back needs to be the same depth on the brackets. Okay, now for mounting the petcock. Now for mounting the petcock, you want to use some of the Teflon tape. You want to wrap it around at least twice, give it 2 complete revolutions on it, and you want to wrap it in a clockwise fashion. That way when you put it into the bung on the tank and tighten it up, it flows with the direction that you are tightening it up, and it's less likely to tear it up and make it come loose. Be sure and put your be sure and put the red washer that comes with the petcock on it. The red washer will help seal it and allow it to tighten up properly, and it seems to work better for me. Tighten it up by hand, then I grab my 8-inch crescent wrench and give it about a half a turn more to get it fully seated. You don't want to over tighten it. This here you can tighten it up a little bit more than you would want to the studs. Like I said, the bung on this is pretty beefy, well welded to the bottom of the tank there. It'll handle a little bit more torque, but the studs, no go on the studs. All right, let's go ahead and put this bad boy on the bike. Okay, you can see on the bike here, many of your mountain bikes and the like, you've got cables running underneath the top tube. You want to be careful not to put any of the tank mounting brackets over the cables. That'll just cause you problems. You want to be sure and slip your mounting bracket between the cable and your top tube. That way you're not crushing or kinking or causing a bind in any of your cables. Fit the tank on. You've got a flat washer, a lock washer, and then your hex nut. I find it easier to get the hardware on all 4 of the posts before I start tightening them up. Here I am getting the final set on. I've turned the tank over here so you can see what we got. If you don't have the nylock hex nuts on it, go ahead and tighten them all up by hand. You want each one tightened up about the same. That way you don't have one side of the clamp all the way up, tightened up all the way against the tank, and only a couple of threads tightened on the other one, on the opposite side, that is. Now, you do not want to put rubber throughout, rubber between the tank and the bar, but if you do have a curved bar and it's not going to seat fully on it, you can cut some inner tube or maybe a piece of tire on one side of it to help keep the tank stable on it. But like I said, you don't want a lot of rubber between the tank and the top tube. You don't want it moving about. And as you can see here, I tightened it up enough. You give it a whack or two and it still wants to rotate on the tube. So tighten it up just a little bit more. What you want to do is tighten it up just a little bit at a time. Don't go getting ham-fisted with it and get it really super tight. You will break these studs here. So we just want to go a little bit at a time. Check your work. Give it a tap. If it still rotates, give it a couple of more cranks. As you can see here, I've got it fairly snug. I give it a tap or two, it will rotate, but it's pretty firm on there. I'm confident that it's not going to slip and rotate while I'm riding the bike. That's all you want. If you get it any tighter than that, you will have problems and have leaking. So I've said enough about the leaking, I hope. Don't over tighten the studs. Okay, let's get our gas line on here. We're not using the filter on the petcock. We're using the inline filter. Your filter has an arrow pointing down. You want to be sure and orient it correctly, that the arrow is pointing towards the carburetor with relationship to the flow of the fuel. I made the fuel line just a little bit longer than it absolutely needs to be, because with the gas will cause the fuel line to shrink a little bit. But what you don't want is the fuel line or the fuel filter resting against the cylinder head. That could be a problem if it gets too hot. So we're going to put a tie wrap on it and pull it up, pull it away from the head. I hope I showed you a little something about how to properly install a gas tank. Check the link down below for a lot more videos. If you like my video, give it a thumbs up, click subscribe. Thank you for watching.